Stephen wanted to move up pop-up tent auto sales.
No objection.
Ideally.
All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to move right along and pick up tent pop-up auto sales. Commissioner Berry and Allison Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I remember discussing this a couple of years ago, and I think we actually discussed it a couple, if not 3 times. And I thought that we had given some, I thought we gave some direction or gave the outlines of what we would be supportive of to the planning board to then eventually come back to us. But it turns out that that did not come back to us for whatever reason. So when Representative Ingram or when Clay mentioned it a couple of weeks ago that that he had gotten a couple of phone calls related to it, I said, okay, yeah, I'll be happy to, I'll be happy to bring it back. And if there's, some details in, I think a portion of it is an option 1 or option 2. What would you be supportive of? I would be supportive of the option 1. And Robert's out too. So I guess he's just kind of looking to see what other folks want. I mean, I think the best case scenario from today, we would still need to send it back to the planning board. And can't we ask them to hear, if the majority of the board chose option 1, can't we ask them to consider the option 1 in January?
So you want to send it back to the planning board, Commissioner? What you're asking?
I'm pretty sure.
Yes, Commissioner, with 2 comments. One is that there may be a need to address a different provision of the LDC that exempts out temporary uses of less than 30 days of needing a permit. So there may need to be some additional language added to this to make that not be a conflict. Okay. The other thing is, just so you all are aware, I did have a conversation with Commissioner Burgash about this, and I believe he is actually supportive of an even more stringent ordinance than this one, similar to what some other local governments have done, where they actually have like some insurance and bond and a whole litany of requirements of one wanting to do a pop-up tent type sale. And so I just thought I would relay that message to you all for the extent that that may be of interest.
Okay.
Commissioner Underhill.
If y'all are good with it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will reiterate all the things that I said at that time when we brought this before us before. This is a industry that is very well and heavily regulated at the state level. I have still not had a single citizen come to me and tell me that they were harmed by a pop-up tent distributorship or dealership or a purchase there. So the use of the LDC as a means for a protectionist measure to protect, and I know the complainants here that have been bringing this, I love my Hyundai, and so, I anticipate I'll buy my next car from the same Hyundai dealership, but, the LDC does not exist for the purpose of protecting market share for one or for another. It struck me then, as it strikes me now, as precisely that. If there was some indication that citizens were being harmed by this activity, it'd be a different discussion. Since I don't see anything of citizens being harmed, I don't know how competition is in any way bad for the consumer. It is often competition that drives lower prices, better product, and better service. So, and as I recall, the planning board kicked it back to us a couple times, saying this isn't what we're here for. This isn't our gig. But certainly, if we want to kick it to them for another discussion, then if that's the will of the board, then so be it.
Honestly, if that's not necessary, and I see Robert stepped out of the room.
I'll kick it back to him. You got my support.
Well, if Robert stepped out of the room, Jeff did give some feedback to Allison, about his preference on this. If it doesn't need to go back to the planning board, then I would be supportive. It would have to come to us twice.
No, this would not require 2 hearings by you, but it would require, I don't know that the planning board ever got to the point of a recommendation. The law requires them to make a recommendation, even if it's to not do it. We need to see that they officially did that, or I would suggest, really, at this point, it's been almost 3 years. I would suggest send it back, let something come to you. You're going to need to have at least 1 public hearing before this board.
I didn't remember feedback from hearings at the planning board that said that were against it. I didn't remember that, not to say it wasn't true. But yeah, it sounds like it needs to go back to the planning board then. So I'm good with that if you'll.
I'm good with that, Commissioner. Commissioner Bender.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to step out for a second. Just to say that I support the direction that it's going in, and it's probably been the one issue I've been contacted more about since I stepped in office. So it would, I think the consumer protection and things like that, and so I look forward to see what comes back.
Sounds great. Thank you, Commissioner Bender. So with that, we will move and send that back to the planning board. and-
Mr. Chairman,
I'm
if you don't
sorry,
mind. So
Commissioner.
option, out of the two options, Commissioner Bender, are you supportive of the option 1 or option 2?
I believe it was option 2.
One is more restrictive, I believe. 2 is less restrictive, I believe. Madam Counsel, is that an accurate reflection of what they are? Well, Horace, answer me. Okay, he's nodding his head.
Yeah.
Okay. So option 1 is more restrictive, option 2 is less restrictive. I had given some comments before, when you stepped out, that I supported option 1, and Allison had mentioned that Commissioner Bagash did as well, and was actually willing to be even more restrictive. But if we just send it with option 1, I think that's what I was hoping to do.
Thanks, Commissioner Berry.
Yes, sir. I'll use your discretion on that.
Yeah, I'm fine, Steve, whatever you do. So, Amy, are we clear on the direction, what we're doing?
Sending both ordinances back to the planning board? Option 1, I'm sorry.
Option 1.
Yes.
All right, got that. Thanks, Commissioner Berry. Is there anything else? No, sir. We're moving right along. We're, well, almost halfway there. Protect